First of all, good evening and a very warm welcome to yet another poetic evening of Writer's Table Literary Mantram. Writer's Table, for those of you who do not know, is the vertical of Art Mantram Trust. And we've all been hobnobbing like this for a while now, and we've just been enjoying each other's company. At least once a month, I think we meet and we all wait with bated breath, because there's always a nice person, like a talented, renowned person like Gopi sir, who will be our guest of honor for that evening. So we've just been doing this and we've been enjoying it immensely. It's been inspirational for us. And today we have a very truly inspirational person. I've had the pleasure of corresponding with Gopi Kottoor and sir, and I'm totally, after seeing his CV and interacting a bit with him, I'm totally inspired, and I'm so happy and delighted that he's here with us today. Mr. Gopi Kottoor is the pen name of Raghav G. Nair, a renowned Indian English poet. So that's how he likes to call himself, an Indian English poet. And he is best known for his poem, Father, Wake Us in Passing. He is also the founder editor of quarterly poetry journal, Poetry Chain, and lives in Trivandrum in Kerala, where he had his early education also. He attended the Masters of Fine Arts program at the Texas State University, that too in poetry. He's graduated in the US. His awards and honors have been innumerable, and he continues receiving them. So I'm going to just read out a few. It's amazing the kind of honor he has received. All India Poetry Competition, the Poetry Society 2017, All India Special Poetry Prize, Poetry Society, India and the British Council, 1997. All India Poetry Prize, second prize, Poetry Society, India and the British Council, 1997. All India Poetry Awards, Commendation Prizes, 1995 and 1998. The Bharati Prize, Chennai, 1995. The Kerala University College Prize, 1976. And the Clover Poetry Prize, Commendation, 1973. And then there are other honors as well. So it's a very interesting life, and we are very, very happy, delighted, and proud, that privilege that he is with us today. So thank you, sir, for joining us. It's indeed a great privilege. And the format of the evening is as follows. We'll have 30 minutes exclusive with Gopi sir, and then we will, after that, we will have our member poets, 4 of them who have come forward, who will be then reading their work for us. So without further ado, we jump on and hand over to Mr. Gopi Kottoor, sir. All yours now. Thank you very much. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we are going to, as is our format, we normally show the poems on the screen, so that we can all have 2 mediums of penetrating the poem. I have the poet's voice narrating, reading it, and then we also have on the screen, the scroll on the screen that we can follow. And Gopi sir is also going to speak a little bit about each of his work before he reads it. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for your nice words. And I think it's a great privilege to be here with you all. And that when Shaji told me that I could speak on in your Art Mandram, I was very happy. And I consider it a privilege. I just had a look at the Art Mandram work that you're doing, and I think it is significant that you are doing the kind of work that you do. And I think I am honored and privileged to be here again. And thank you for all your great words. I don't know whether I am worthy of all that, but anyway, life goes on and we write. And the writing is part of our life. It's part of our being. And I always tell young people that they should write, not for the immediate recognition that you get, but as a liberation for yourself. Moreover, writing is not only a mental exercise, it is also something that adds to your life and the way you look at things. When you write, before you write, and knowing that you will write, your perceptions will be very different. Your perceptions, your observations in life will be very different. And I think these are the ways that I have been trying to look at my own poetry. I hope I am audible. Yeah, thank you. I can read. I can go with. I have sent the poems to you. I will read. The first one is called Krishna, which I will be reading.
I
Or the light.
request Nisha to do the screen share, please.
I think it is not very clear, but it's okay. Is it? Is this
it's clear, sir? It's clear. It's clear. If you see on your screen.
Yeah. For my eyes, okay. Krishna is a poem that I wrote recently, and it is based on the image of Lord Krishna that I have to find years later, very many years later, after it was brought in, after it became a sort of something that could not be placed in a puja room or something like that. And this poem, it's a personal take on my own life. It's a take on my memories. And through that Krishna poem, I see it as a mirror of my life. So this is how I've composed this poem. Krishna, or the light within. I'm glad to say that this poem has been received well, and it has also earned some prizes at the, I think, if I'm not wrong, it is at the Chandigarh Film Poetry Festival. Krishna, the light within. A Krishna nearly as old as me. I remember that evening when father bought him from one of the payment shops in Guruvayur. He was there among many other gods, handsome in his crown among peacock feathers, by the myriad bright brass lamps. He was all gold against a blue background. When we came home, we hung him on the wall, a decoration piece in father's office room. Yes, one day he fell and broke his leg. For years, he was not found. And one day, after the property partition, I found him again. He had gone under my mother's photograph and with her to the attic. I dusted him. I took him with me. His gold is mostly gone, but now he is with me, a leg broken, still hanging onto his scarf and flute. I light a candle for him every evening, and looking at him, I remember my dead brother, my smoking father, his coma corpse sailing quietly to the electric crematorium, making a small occasional sound as though he feared that fire and came alive. My lovely mother, who died alone in a hospital bed, calling out her children's names. I remember the rose garden back in our home, that night jasmine and its fragrance not letting me sleep. And I give him a place, the first among gods. I don't care if he is no more divine, but he is secretly mine. And to him, I don't know why, I like him so much. No more gold, aging, broken, not too good to look at as he used to be before. But to him is my silence, my lost prayer. That's that. that closes the first poem. Is there something should I stop now, or?
No, I think you continue, sir.
Okay. The second one is called A Knock on the Door. This is a relatively new poem too. I'm not going to explain the poem because some poems cannot be explained and must be read and received by the audience, the way it should be received. This is one small poem of that kind, so I will just go ahead with the poem. It is called A Knock on the Door. Knock, knock. Someone please open the door. Someone please. She must be all wet in the snow. Someone light a fire. She must be tired. Give her a little wine. Just a little. And one kiss before it turns dark again. My poem, She Has Come. The next poem is called A Woman's Heart. This was published in the Madras Courier. This is also a recent poem, maybe around 3 months back. There is nothing much to say about how these poems come to be written because they are all a fusion of memories and thoughts and recollection. And the idea is to put a poem across in ways that it will stay in a reader's mind. That's what I've tried. A woman's heart. Tell me, have you known a woman's heart? She's a cross, just a cross. Her words are your beads of rosary. You will turn and toss. Tell me, across the centuries, her pleats, her beads, the parting of her breasts, all of hers, all things departing, all covered, all dressed. A woman's heart, all of hers, all of those daffodils, all those roses, all those morning flowers that lie just one night on your grave. Now I'll move on to a slightly bigger poem. It's called Great Grandmother. This poem is based on a real life incident. Most of the things mentioned here are true. Most of them, 99% are true. And I was working on a flat poem in the sense, a prose poem where somebody should see if it is poetry. The reader must experience that emotion, even if it is just prose. So I made it just a blank prose poem because I have some other prose poems also, which somehow I know I have worked. Like I wrote a poem called The Toy Maker, which was well received, and that was also a prose poem. So how you can bring prose into poetry, it was an experiment in this poem, and the most important thing about the poem is how I have tried to relay emotions into this, the emotions of a life. So, and how much the reader can get from it. Great grandmother. Great grandmother in her younger days was a beautiful lady. Many were the students who would stand by the corridors of Indraprastha to wish her good morning, madam, in the misty Delhi mornings. nearly 200 years before. Great-grandmother taught Shakespeare. Her favorite was The Tempest, an Avon edition in silky white pulp, with a bright, balding Shakespeare looking strangely handsome, that she read every night before turning to sleep, like the Gita or the Bible, and kept under her pillow. By then, great-grandmother was already a widow. In her late 20s, as she waited at the village railway station, what greeted her out of the sleeper coach of the late night train was a railway coffin with her husband in it. He had died on the way. Great-grandmother then went back to do her post-graduation, back to Shakespeare. Marry again? Never. He was my life, she would say. The few moments with him are my eternity. It was a great quote to us that put her on purity's pedestal. She became our fairy tale of chastity. Grandmother rose to become the head of the Department of English. She lived all her life in a girls' hostel, helping students write poetry, British English, and poetry. When grandmother retired, she came back to Kerala. All her relations welcomed her, wishing that all her life wealth would be theirs. They gave her all she wanted, plantains dipped in honey, but grandmother would have none of that. Nothing of her wealth. Even the fruit of her mango trees became bank FDs. One day, while climbing the wooden stairs of her ancestral home, grandmother slipped and fell. She broke her spine. The doctors said she would never rise again. I remembered then great-grandmother standing before my old Click 3 camera by the hanging blossoms of the Chinese lanterns. She was still beautiful at 78, a kind of Portia. That was when she fell. Independent soul, great-grandmother, she said she would lie in an ashram to die. She would not burden any relative. To the ashram, she would give all her wealth. You come alone, she mumbled. You go all alone. Soon all her relations, they said, stingy, dirty, old selfish woman. No wonder her husband died young. No wonder she broke her spine. God did right. We will have nothing more to do with her. Time lays big eggs in the desert, and life scoops them down in the dust. 30 years later, I visited my great-grandmother at the ashram. She had been lying in bed for 30 years now, bed sores sunflowering about her spine, that the ashram maids washed at guest time. She lay, her open eyes rolling up the old teak ceiling, completely blind. She was told by the holy sister of the benevolent ashram, Akka, your favorite grandnephew has come. In a room that smelt of sudden Dettol and Tulsi trying to outsmart all pus, great-grandmother held me tenderly by my hand, and she kept mumbling to me, you have come. You have at last come. Now I can die. I can die in peace. God will not put me to test any longer. My time has come. God will not let me suffer. Her cataract eyes flitted like silver butterflies. That afternoon, as I drove back among the paddy fields, diamonding rain, amongst its tiny flowers, the rain vipers momentarily clearing glass, I dreamt my dream. It was all about God, all about the earth's seasons, all about you and me. Why? The seas churn, the sands choking our lives, immersing us in tidal grandeur. Why all this benevolence of fire, blossoming us in its burns? So the next poem is poem 5. It's called The Tomb. It's a semi-love poem, I should say. This is also a relatively new. All these are new poems. As I would like to say, because you have asked me about my poetic journey, I don't myself know how these poems get written, but as the poems get written, I try to create nuances and effects for the poems. Though the poems start coming and you write them, and in the process of writing is the process of shedding and the process of ameliorating it. And this is one such poem. This is called The Tomb. And like a tomb, I will stay in your mind. A place you will return to at times. But I won't know. And there is no way you will tell. You have forgotten, have you, how I once filled you with flowers? It is no longer your hair, your eyes, your lips. But why are you still there, beautiful breath, unknown to me, by my side? You will come. And then again, you will fill me with colors in your empty hands. The poem called, the next poem is called The Dead Bee. Dead bee is just because, I was walking across my room and I saw a small bee and I just wrote about it. Dead bee. There is a dead bee on the floor. Every time I pass it by, it looks like a word torn off an old Bible. Every time I pass it by, I tell myself, next time I will throw it out of the window. Small thing. Ain't a big problem. But who remembers the miles it traveled, the honey it picked along the way, the things it did along the way to satiate the garden flowers? Who remembers? Who will pick it up tenderly to give a dead bee for all the honey it gave the world a decent burial? Next one is a love poem. When I write about this dead bee, I would like to just go back to say that, everything is, as far as a writer is concerned, to me at least, I feel there's a kind of, it's not what I'm saying, but kind of universal connection. There's a kind of connection. And it is this connection, breathing into this connection, that creates these kinds of thoughts. And that's why I tell most of the young writers who want to write, this is why you should write, because, the sense of observation, small things that others pass by, only if you're a writer, only if you only if you want to write can you enter that phase where you will look a little deeper into things. And you realize that everything is threaded like a web to the center. Like starting from the periphery, everything is aligned. There is. You think some things are out of place, but it's not. You may think that I will do this. I will take it out of place. But even then, everything is intertwined, and that is where a poet or a writer gets his connection with the things he's writing. And unless you're connected with the things you're writing, I think your poetry or your writing will not be successful. Unless you want to create that dimension of connection with things. That's part of my belief. And long before I started writing poetry, I was a little. I used to think for myself that I had this kind of wanting to have the connection with things. Though I have been a little, even in my childhood, like everybody else, I must have been very troublesome to the animals and etc. But finally, when you see the universe as part of you, and you are the integral part of it, and you draw your inspiration from it, that's when good poetry comes. Okay, this is called Quieter Than the Ocean. This is a small love poem. Quieter than the ocean into which ships sink. What can be quieter than that? With all the inside cries that no one hears. Quieter than the ocean upon which the stars are so bright, as though they are always searching. Drowned love. It's like the image of the stars seem in the ocean, looking at the ocean, seem to be looking for drowned love. That was the thought. And now I'll come to the final poem. It's called The Pain of Falling Rain. The pain of falling rain. In what more ways must I forget you again? In what more ways will you again forget me? I do not know why, but please forgive me. I tore myself to shreds and cast me away in the jungle. For the mirage of the desert, I traded the fragrance of the rose. In how many more ways must I ask myself, how could you forget me? Even though I burned myself to ashes in the smoke curls of your hair. Even now, in loving you, is the pain of 100 years of falling rain. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think close.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, we just had the half an hour. I don't know how it went by. I mean, each of your poems are very beautiful and they set us thinking. And the last one I loved particularly. So, but I'm not going to speak about all that because we're going to have at the end of the reading, we're going to have Yumna Harisingh. She's going to do a little closing, with all the poem and everybody's poetry. She's going to speak about everybody. So that is going to happen at the end. And because we want to first do all the reading and then finally she will be speaking about this one. So in fact, I also wanted to bring to your notice that we have Jija Harisingh here with us. She is the founder of Art Mantram Trust. And Yumna is her daughter, who is also part of, she's also on the board of Art Mantram. So We have Jija here, and so Jija, Yumna, and the team have been doing great work. Actually, we have been now there's an art village that's coming up. It's called Drishyam, and we've all been working towards that. Just thought I'll update everybody in the group in case somebody is not aware of it. So I now hand over to Anil. Anil is going to do the first. Anil is a member of Writers Table, a very active member, writes fabulously well. And so I won't come in between. After Anil, it will be Shruti. Is Shruti here? I didn't see Shruti, so I think Shruti is not here. After Anil, it will be Yumna and then Rugmani. Shaji, would you like to read something?
And let's wait and see.
Yeah, let's wait and see. So this is what it is. So we'll start with Anil then.
Okay. Am I audible? Am I? All right. Thank you. Good evening to all of you. And I must say I was dumbstruck by the poetry that Gopi Kottoor read for all of us today. Wonderful, sir. Congratulations. Okay. Now, thank you for the opportunity of, presented to me for reading one of my poems. This particular poem was written almost a year ago, just before my relocation to my hometown after 50 years in a bustling metropolis, Chennai. So in many ways, this just happened because I guess this was just an outpouring of all my, pent up agony of still being in the metropolis when I was just a couple of weeks away from relocating. So here goes. It's titled Tomorrow's Sun. Tomorrow's Sun. My skin has been too tight, too old, suffocating, too rough, scaly, calloused. You don't know my struggle trying to rupture it. Gasping from every pore, writhing, sweating, shaking, silently screaming. In the dead of the night, struggling, shedding, molting, I shall emerge breathing free, young and shiny, a new me, in my new world, new skin. In my newfound sheen, I shall at last smile. Tomorrow's sun too will smile on greener canopies and verdant vistas, on gurgling streams and sloping roofs, on shoe flowers and mukuti and tumba, and on happily jobless cicadas with their day in, day out whirrings, and on idle summer quails with their throats drunk from too many sweet mangoes. Tomorrow's sun will smile on men glistening with sweat, celebrating life with the heady rhythms of 1,000 chendas and caparisoned elephants in ancient temples under ancient banyan trees. And my ancient deities will exult goose-pimpled at the ancient crescendos of the 1,000 drums. And I'll be goose-pimpled too in my new young skin with its newfound sheen. You'll see me maybe in my folded up mundu, walking freely among the paddies or languidly swimming in the streams. I shall sing like the koel, whir like the cicada. I shall kiss all the flowers of my new home and bring you its bouquet, maybe. Or maybe I shall sit still under an ancient banyan and pretend I am an anthill. Tomorrow's sun. Thank you.
We have Yumna coming on next. And then Rugmani.
No Shruti?
No Shruti yet.
Okay, so I will read. So I'll be quick. I think Rukmini is also doing two, so I shall be quick. We'll start with this one. These are actually poems written in January and February 2000. So, you know, for once, I'm not reading any of my new poetry. This is really old poetry. Goes back to when I was just getting out of my teens, when I was struggling with what it means to be person, you know, to be adult. Horse, movement, joy, line, light. It's all in the light. It's all always in the light and in the mind. But the mind is for later. The light is for now. Mine, watching, watched, to be, experimented, scrawled upon, moment precious to be extolled, to be forgotten. Productive, to produce, to create, to give birth, to mutate, to destroy, to tear apart with nails, digging into soft, vulnerable centers until they ooze out their very meaning and lie there empty. And this poem, I think, was really about trying to capture the essence of what I was seeing around me as a poet, to try and capture it into words, to try and put into a poem the juicy reality of lived life until you really sucked it out of the marrow of your experience and tried to put it onto the page. And it goes kind of hand in hand with the second poem, which is, well, you'll see, which is more, I think, about what is the purpose of life. And in terms of ambition, in terms of career, in terms of, you know, all of those turning points when you're just starting out. Obscurity, unperceived is unthreatening, scoffed at as weak and powerless. Yet when the walls of anonymity solidify and appear between the mists, men quake and curse. Those unfortunate or perhaps lucky enough to glimpse or guess at this concrete visage, work, work, work. Toiling to achieve a win, racing through the mist, denying themselves in the present as a sacrifice to the future. A legacy escapes man's short memory span, or mayhaps in eternity, the joke's still on man. For where's the difference between 100 generations and one? So this was written 1st of February, 2001. So it's a very, very old poem, as is the previous one. I'm done. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, Rugmani.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Before I start the poem, yeah, just keep it there. You know, in a Vedic tradition, you're an orphan not if you don't have parents. You're an orphan if you don't have a guru. So what happened was, but what happened in my life was when I was 32 years old, I lost both my parents. And however much you plan for it, whether you're 32 or 68 or 70, you're never ready for it. My umbilical cord felt cut. And 4 years later, my guru found me. I never looked for him. I never wanted a guru, but he just found me. And since then, the two poems I'm sharing come from that experience. One is about the experience of meditation, because when I began to meditate, the pain that had begun to happen after I lost my parents, it completely disappeared. I don't know how to say this, but there was no pain left. And then my second poem is the miracle of meeting the most incredible, having a relationship with the most incredible being I could have imagined in this lifetime. So this is the first poem, a happiness variant of the real thing. Alarm goes off at Brahma Muhurtam, 4:30 a.m. human time. Tousle-headed and bleary-eyed, I negotiate the dark till suddenly awake and moving, a cosmic tune, attuned, finally tuned on the terracotta veranda where my yoga mat lies uncoiled from last night. I lay myself down, supine. Yoga, pranayam, some chants I have been doing some 25 odd years, skipping a day or two with somewhat variations because I made a promise to a master I met 25 years ago, a realized master, that that's what I would do. It feels like a dance in the silence of that timeless time of day, a sequential set of motions honed over time reverentially on an odd day, vaguely, averagely. But sadhana has a life of its own, breathing, pulsating, vibrating, an auric body, mine, not mine, who knows? It's then all done. In the stillness of the yet darkness, I settle in Padmasana, sink into myself deeper, 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 till I'm not there anymore. Just the light in the early sky and the yoga mat and the iridescent colors of happiness everywhere. The second poem is called The Iconoclast. The Iconoclast. He took religion out of the portals of the religious and presented them as simple spiritual wisdom to the ordinary folk. Folk like the IT guy who worked long behind his laptop, the beauty parlor lady in her rented parlor, the farmer who grew ragi in Tumkur. He decoded cryptic knowledge trapped in scriptures and rituals and handed them as easily as chocolates to little children playing in the sandy beach. He told ancient truths in the parlance of the common man, the school teacher, the artist, the tax accountant. He said it in a way they all got it and they lived better lives as a result. He said, Brahmanism was not a status inherited by birth, but a state of consciousness of people who've worked to develop their minds and their hearts. At Upanayanam, people of all religions and nationalities donned the punul, the sacred thread. They shaved their heads and learned ancient secret mantras reserved till now for a few, and amongst them there were women too, women who had been kept out of the sanctum of these traditions, bound for countless centuries by a patriarchy that had ruled. He was and is an iconoclast. And yet, when he chanted ancient mantras, he charged the energy for hundreds of miles around him with love and truth. He was and is an iconoclast. And yet, when he performed pujas, the whole of nature celebrated abundance and joy and the miracle of life everywhere. He was and is an iconoclast. And yet around him, stones came alive and blessed millions of people who came to them for healing and grace. He has appeared in human form in different times in the evolution of human civilization, as Krishna, as Shankara, as Muhammad, as Christ, as Buddha. He came too as Devi, he came as Shakti, as Durga, and he came as Mahalakshmi. Whenever someone or something begins to shackle the planet, the people, the minds, and the hearts, he appears. Thinkers and poets who live their lives in symbolisms call him the iconoclast.
So amazing. Just simply enjoyed, and everyone and every poem was fabulous today. It was one of those beautiful evenings, I think, that all of us, I don't know why my video is not turning on, sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to now hand over to Yumna because Yumna is going to do the closing of, she'll do it in a beautiful, her own way. She's got a beautiful way of doing it. So we look forward to that. Yumna, over to you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I agree with you. I think it was really quite a phenomenal evening. Of course, I must start with our fantastic guest poet today, Gopi Krishna Kottoor. I really wouldn't know, sir, where to start with talking about your poetry on the broader scale. So I can just talk about it from what it meant to me. I think every poem resonated in a different way. Krishna, the light within, the colorful Krishna picked up on from a roadside shop that unearthed kind of like, Proust's remembrance of things past, brings back every moment, significant moment when you find it after the property division, up in the attic with your mother, its broken leg, your dead brother, your smoking father, the motive of the Krishna and how it sort of becomes your inanimate, steadfast companion, and therefore, becomes revered for these connections that it holds for you. I think really you put the poem together in such a way that I think it then takes on that same significance for us as we listen to the poem. And I didn't think of such similar associations in my life, but it did make me think about the importance that such objects can take on when they get vested with this emotional intimacy. So I thought that was a fabulous poem. Knock on the Door, the love poem to poetry and the muse. I think the open-heartedness of how this poem has traveled, and the poem as personified, the poem Tired, Give Her Wine and One Kiss, the deftness with which that poem has been put together, I think, not just as a love poem to a poem, but in terms of, and not the relief of a writer when it all finally comes together on a page as you want it to, but I think the lightness of it, that almost makes the poem seem like a young girl who, despite her travels in the snow, has arrived fresh as a daisy. And that was the impression that poem left on me. I really enjoyed it. Your great grandmother, really, I think someone mentioned the prose poetry, and when I think of prose poetry, I immediately think of Baudelaire. But in addition to Baudelaire's vivid imagery, I think the narrative spellbinding of this lyrical ode, to a woman who lived such a singular life. The poem carried with it the pace and the movement of our oral tradition, and of course, your extremely I have to use the word deft again, the deft imagery, the sunflower soars, the arrival of the dead husband in the carriage, worshipful students wishing her good morning, and at the end, the silvery butterfly cataract eyes. And of course, your closing stanza, why all this benevolence of fire blossoming us in its burns. I think it takes it from this very enthralling narrative all the way into the high emotion of life and death and the universe. So again, an absolutely fantastic poem. The Dead Bee spoke to me. The dead bee, because I end up picking up all these insects everywhere as well when I see them, dead dragonflies and such, and then they hang around because I'm always fascinated by them. So, but to see a dead bee and to think that, this bee in this universe of things that you keep intending to throw out as you walk past it, but then to imagine the world that it has lived and the interconnectedness of things. And as a writer, as you said, when you were talking about the context and the importance of the seeking of thought, that spirals in to see this web. I would say to move from looking at a dead bee as something to be thrown out each time you pass by it to, at the end, thinking of it as dignified enough to deserve a burial. You take us on that story with you, as you look at the dead bee, which moves from the corpse of an insect, a pest, into almost a story on the journey of life. The pain of falling rain, I agree. I don't know who said that I think it was Lakshmi who said it was her favorite poem. I think there's so much about that poem that's really delightful. Although For me, the lines that really I think I'm going to carry in my heart are, how could you forget me, even though I burnt myself to ashes in the dark curls of your hair. So overall, Gopi sir, I think there's so much to love. I think I could spend all my time, looking at each line of your poem and how it all fits together. So thank you so much for spending this evening with us. I will now move on to our own poems. So in case you haven't had a chance, there were also lots of reactions to your poetry as you were reading them that are in the chat box. So please do, I think, take a moment when you have the time to just review that, or we'd be happy to send that across to you.
Thank you, Yumna. Thank you for your nice words.
To Anil, like, what a fantastic metamorphosis poem. Like, it immediately brought me back to the catharsis of a butterfly, that melts down almost into nothing, and that utter destruction that then leads to this new rebirth. The adjective packed first stanza that then contrasts with, this kind of utopian world, this vivid world that's coming into being. It was, all of the embodying in the poem that took place through the words and the language that you chose, goose pimples and shiny skin, and the torpid nature of time in your new home that seemed both sensual and playful at once. I really enjoyed it, Anil. Well done. Thank you. Rugmani, of course, I've heard Happiness Variant a few times, and I think each time for me, I don't know if you're tweaking it. I don't know if it's going through evolution, or if it's just that each time I hear it, it's sort of the rhythm for me just gets more finely tuned. I'm inclined to think that there's some tweaking happening behind the scenes, but it's such a beautiful poem. It really sort of, even if you're like me, who's really not a morning person at all, it brings alive that magic of that moment, almost like a date with creativity, that transition from your sleep self into your higher self, and how you put it together with the language. I am convinced this is a better poem than the last time I heard it. And I don't know if it's just me that's changed in the interim since the last time I've heard it, or the poem that's changed, but kudos, Rukmini, I really enjoyed it. The Iconoclast is really, for me, a modern bhakti poem for today, sort of a pen to, he was and is an iconoclast, that as the rhythmic line that comes in is almost mantra-like. And the way it resonates with a series of words together, I think works really well as well. I enjoyed how you almost deconstruct him. So even someone who doesn't know him at all or know of him would get a sense of the impact that he's making in the world. And I think that there's without really being sort of a call to the reader to engage with Sri Sri, it almost becomes an open door, an invitation to say, this is what he's done, is doing, it's going to affect you even if you go no further than reading this poem. So, so thank you very much. That's my quick response to all of the poems. As mentioned with Gopi sir, I think I could go on for much longer, but I shan't test the limits of the grace of God, who has made sure that I haven't had a sneezing fit in the middle. On that note, I'll say thank you very much. It's precisely 9 o'clock. Actually, before I go, if I may make a quick request for you to keep in mind, Ambassador T.P. Srinivas, who's a part of our community, lost his talented wife, Lekha Srinivas, earlier. And I just want you to, when you pray or when you have a moment and you think of such things, to sort of wish the family well and wish her well, her Atma, wherever it may be. On that note, thank you very much. I now hand back over to Lakshmi.
Thank you so much. That was brilliantly done. What a rap. It's fabulous. I knew Yumna is a natural and she does this. And one thing I noticed, but it's a bit late, because Yumna also read her poetry and we haven't done a wrap up of that. So all I want to say is that they were beautiful. They touched somewhere, touched us all. And I haven't prepared an elaborate one like you, but I just want to say they were beautiful. And thank you for that. So thank you very much, Gopi sir. It was a pleasure having you with us. And each of your poems, like Yumna beautifully described, I don't have the words to say that, but they were gorgeous. And this is going to keep us going. Like I mentioned in the chat, there have been a lot of messages on the chat when you were reading, so you can take a look at those. And as you were talking, I think this is what keeps us going as a group, having these evenings of inspiration from you, and how beautifully. And I learned a new thing, prose poems. So I can explore that. I had no idea that was there. I also would like to mention that I would also like to thank Shaji, because Shaji Nair is the one who brought in Gopi sir, and thank you, Shaji, for that beautiful introduction. Gopi sir, I hope you enjoyed our poems also. I don't know what did you think about us, our group, and the poets that had a reading today. I hope you enjoyed that also. And thank you, everyone, and look forward to the next one.
Can I just add that,
Yes.
when I called Gopi and requested him without a moment's hesitation, he immediately said yes. And that's the greatness of this man. And he is a couple of years junior to me in school. And we've known each other since we were kids. And it's such a pleasure to have you here today. What I love about your poem is, is that normally I've been listening to a lot of poetry and reading a lot of poems. These poems are generally, sort of a flow of emotion from the writer to the reader, and it stops there. But with you, it creates a dialogue. That is one fantastic part of your poetry writing, which we would like to learn more about. Because, when I read, I suddenly want to ask you, where is the Krishna now? Or where is your mother's portrait? And who is this woman, you want to understand better? And that kind of your poetry immediately creates a dialogue, which is a fantastic phenomenon. I really wish, you told us a little more about this, so that we would understand what is it that makes you write these kinds of poetry.
You want me to talk a bit?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, actually, I do not know actually, because, for example, the poem Krishna, all I wanted to do was to connect with that image that I rediscovered, and then it brought me a lot of memories. It brought me and soon after I had written it, I knew that I had at least been fortunate to have succeeded a bit in being able to write the poem. But if you ask how a poem is being written, I don't think any poet can tell how a poem is being written. It's easier to say about a story. It's easier to say about a novel. But poetry, is kind of, you ask about the woman who does all this. It's not exactly the woman, actually. It is something that, see, a woman is there that she is the beginning of an inspiration, but she's not the end of the inspiration. She is the one. She is the object through which you pass, but she's not the final object. Because the poet has too many things in mind. He must universalize his emotions. He cannot be selfish. He cannot be drawn to himself. See, suppose you draw yourself. I talk about a woman in my life, and then I talk about the subject and the object, and I end it there. That does not become a beautiful poem. When you allow the thoughts to get thought after by the reader, and you create that mystery of that emotion, just as the woman creates the mystery in you. That's important, because these things cannot be easily defined, because for example, the poem which I liked, which Yumna said she liked, which others said they liked, which many others said they liked, and that the poem about the falling rain, about the in Malayalam I have made it called it Marayude Vedana, the pain of rain. It's a poem that just I don't know how it came to me. It just came. It was after it came, I was thinking, oh, it came, it came. So I wrote about it. That is the kind of thing, And then I went through the poem around 10, 20 times and then felt, okay, this is a poem that is good to be translated also. I think, you discover your poem. Finally, I think to enter that state of discovering yourself, your poem, after you write it, like somebody else has written it, and then know, okay, this poem has got some meaning, some universal feeling, or some, it will vibe with others. That's your own discovery, after the poem. So
no, actually, when I read your poem, that the pain of rain, it translated itself into Malayalam for me more than in English, which is very strange. That is the first time I'm experiencing it.
Yeah.
When I read a poetry, I imbibe it in English, but this particular poem, actually, it came to me, Vedana,
that pain. Even when I read the poem out in recently when I went outside to Kathmandu, this poem was very much recognized. I mean, they all went in, about this poem. So it is difficult, to say how exactly these things happen. But I also would like to consider that as one of my good poems. Just as I may like to think about other poems also, some of my other poems. But this is ever expanding. So if you ask a person who writes, see, for one person as me, I am one who feels that I should never call myself a poet, because poetry is something that is a kind of deity. It is a kind of goddess. It is something very much more than spiritual. And one beautiful thing about poetry is that it must keep coming. And as long as it keeps coming and you don't know where it comes, that's some big mystery about it. It's a strange feeling even today. These things happen. I'm not claiming, but just see.
Thank you.
What
Thank you. I mean,
say,
the last bit was the best.
Yeah, 1 minute. I just wanted to say, see, many people I find they say I am a poet. But I think that's not the way to look at it. It's when somebody else recognizes you as a poet. Oh, he writes poetry. Then he says he writes poetry. Then you say, okay, maybe I'm a poet. No, that's the way things are. I don't like people who say I am a poet. I am a poet. I don't like that. I would rather say I am a translator. I am a novelist. That's okay. But poetry, that's a bit different thing. Okay, tell me.
So humble and so brilliant at the same time. And,
No.
and I think your words were like beautiful. That last bit was really amazing. Thanks Shaji for instigating some questions from Gopi sir. Thank you very much. It's been a beautiful evening, and on that happy note, I would like
what
to
a
close.
lovely evening. Even our members, what lovely poems. Absolutely brilliant poems.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi.
Thank you.
So well.
Lakshmi and Yumna, special thanks to both of you.